Welcome to Worthy Ones, the video series where each and every week I share with you the newest issue ones that I read for the current comic book week and deem them worthy or not worthy. Guys, I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content, you like me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, guys, you came to the right place. So this week's number ones have a lot of barbarians and Vikings and all kinds of stuff like that. So we're going to find out what I thought of these issue ones. Now, this week's first issue one doesn't have a Viking or it doesn't have a barbarian warrior in it, but it does kind of take place in a tropical rainforest, and there is a theme in this week's episode of Worthy Ones. But the first book we're talking about today is The Twilight Zone, titled Blanks. This is issue one, published by IDW. It's a 36-page comic for the price of $5. This one is written by Dan Waters and Morgan Beam. So I think a lot of us out there know of The Twilight Zone. How many of you guys watched episodes on TV? It's the old black and white, has this eerie tone, creepy story type of feel to it, right? And if you've never watched the show, then did you ride the attraction? So this book stays true to what the show is. It's a black and white comic book, right? And it takes place on this island in a tropical rainforest in this hidden base of operations. And what's going on in this comic book is that there's this experimental drug that's going through trials, and this guy wants to try this drug. He's dying, I think, of stomach cancer, and he insists on trying it. Now, the doctor says, listen, it's about 10 years away from making it to the public, and this guy truly insists. Now, he does take this drug, and what happens going forward, well, you'll have to read it to find out, but it does have to do with all these blank-faced characters, and this guy tries to escape out of the tropical rainforest, right? And all these warrior blank people here are going after him. So does he escape? Does he stay? What happens? But nevertheless, this book is worthy. Now, depending on your pull list, right, this might not be a book that you might want to pick up every month. It might depend on the story, if it sounds interesting to you. And that's something that I might do because I read so many books, and even though these anthology books can be cool every once in a while, I don't always think that it's worthy on my pull list for a month-to-month basis. But this was a fun story, and at the end of the day, I'm going to give this one a C+. It wasn't monumental or groundbreaking, but it was a very entertaining read, and it did have me hooked to see what was going to happen by the time I wound up getting to the end of it. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, The Sword of Flaws, Issue 1. This one's published by Dark Horse. It's a 32-page comic for the price of $5, written by Tim Seeley. Art is done by Freddie E. Williams II. The artwork is a little bit off for me. I just feel like the characters are just... I can't even explain what it is. It's just something about it that's not my style. They're almost too big and bulky, and I guess that's what is Masters of the Universe, obviously, right? If you're a kid growing up in the 80s, that's what they were. But they're just I don't know, they seem not only bulky, but kind of stubby, and they're kind of off of the pages. They're almost like stickers, because they're all outlined and everything like that. So I don't know. The artwork doesn't really always do it for me. It's not horrible in any stretch of the imagination. It just seems a little bit off, right? But what this book does offer is lots of action. And right from the get-go, that's what you're getting. You're getting an earthquake that's happening. You wind up getting Skeletor, and you wind up getting all of the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe characters trying to attack Castle Grayskull. You got the sorcerers here that's trying to protect everything. And then at the same time, you got Prince Adam, who's trying to hide his identity from Tila in the book. You got Man-at-Arms, who's obviously an older warrior, and you learn how he's just all messed up because of all his years of battle. And you got all the different cast of Skeletor henchmen by them side, like Triclops and Evelyn and all these other characters, and just like there's a lot going on in this comic book, and unfortunately for me, it's not worthy. It's something about these He-Man books that I should like, because I really do like He-Man, but unfortunately in this book, and I think they did this with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when they crossed over, there's just too much going on all at once. And it's overwhelming. And I am a person that knows He-Man and knows these characters. They expect, say for instance, a newer reader to get everything that's going on here right from the start. Now, what keeps this book intriguing, right, is that there is a sword at the end of this, and it's a purple sword. So if you're a He-Man fan, you know that Prince Adam or He-Man has a power sword, and Skeletor has a power sword, and now they're going to be battling for this sword. But again, for a newer reader, this is a book that I just think is just way too much too soon. It needs some room to breathe, and they just throw all these characters and everything that's going on in the world all at once. And unfortunately, I just did not like that. This book winds up getting a grade for me as a C-. I loved seeing all the characters. I knew what was going on in the book because I'm familiar, but my gosh, I feel sorry for a soul who's never read Masters of the Universe before. So the third book we're talking about this week has to do with another barbarian, and that is Conan, Scourge of the Serpent. This is issue 1. This one's published by Titan Comics. It's 32 pages for the price of $5, written by Jim Zub, who does a great job on the regular Conan series, and Ivan Gill does the artwork on this one. So the book looks good. I like all the characters in it. There's definitely some blood and some gore and some action and things like that in this book. And then you don't get too many of like the Serpent Warriors per se in this issue, but you do get this character right here, which I thought looked pretty interesting. And at the end, you wind up getting a serpent-like character as well. Now, there's like 3 different stories that are going on that have to do with like serpents or snakes or whatever it is. And I'm not going to lie, I wasn't always engaged in this story. I felt that there was a lot going on, and this has a different tone to the regular Conan series that is going on. And I think this plays off of the last event that was going on as well. So I didn't feel as connected, like I said, to the other books. And we get to see Conan go out on his mission on what he had to do. You had to go through this other story that had to go with this other woman who was wearing this ring that had to deal with the serpents, and it gives her like uncontrollable rage as well. And so there was just like a lot of different pieces going on, and it was hard to justify what was going on at times. And that's just personally me. So I think for me, I'm still gonna call this book worthy, because I want to see how this story continues to develop, but it's not as strong as the regular ongoing Conan series, like I said earlier. So I need more. I need more time to kind of digest everything that is going on in this book. But I think if you've been reading Conan all this time, and I think if you read the event previously, I think you're going to probably like this. I'm just intrigued because I want to know more about these serpent creatures. So for me, not as strong as previous books, so I'm going to give this one like a B-, maybe a C+. This is really hard to grade for me because I just wasn't as into it as other Conan books. So doing this video today, I feel like I'm in the jungle. It's hot and it's humid, and you know another character that deals with the jungle? Well, it's not a barbarian and it's not He-Man, but it is the Phantom. This is issue 1. This is published by Mad Cave Studios. It's 32 pages. It's $5. Written by Ray Fox. The artwork here is done by Russell Mark Olson. The artwork is fine. I feel like it's a little bit too simplistic, and it's almost like the Phantom is like almost too happy, you know? Even when he's like in a more serious role, I felt like, it just lacked a little bit more detail or whatnot, but it was fine for what it is. And this is bringing back that pulp-like character, right? And in this issue, we wind up getting introduced to who he is and, you know, his tribe and where he lives. And he's a character of the jungle, and he protects this tribe. And all of a sudden, we see this plane that crashes, and there's these drugs that are lost, like cocaine and stuff like that. And these really bad men want to come and repossess their property once again. And we wind up getting to see their ruler come and kind of scour the land to find these drugs. And when he comes to the town, what happens is he demands to get his property back. And if he doesn't, then bad things are going to happen. But if they cooperate, he promises that everything will be okay. Now, does he stay true to that? You'll have to read and find out. How does the Phantom get involved? I don't know. You shall see. But when it comes to this comic book, I say it is worthy. Now, I don't think it did enough for me to capture me, but it is a well-told story, and I think the character is a pretty cool character, and I think it does a good job at kind of introducing him, especially if you don't know who he is, and I think it's a good comic for old-time readers that are familiar with the Phantom. So, however, being that I have so many comic books to read, in fact, 30 books just in this week alone, if this was to come out again, it wasn't next level to keep me engaged enough to continue to read it. And I did like the Zero issue better than this issue, actually. So what does that say for the future issues of this book? I don't know. But it was a good read. I'm going to give this one a C+, and hopefully you guys will continue to read it. All right, switching it over from Barbarians to Phantoms to Vikings, and we're talking about Viking Moon issue 1, published by Image Comics, 32 pages for the price of $4, written by Joe Pruitt, and the art is done by Marcelo Fruzen. This is a book that takes place in the year 1003 during the Viking time period. The artwork in this book is pretty solid, I'm not going to lie. I love how it opens up as you get to see a battle with the Vikings and some other clan that's in this land, right? And really what happens is you go back one day in time and you get to see why our characters are going to this land, right? And you see all the different character interactions, and once they get to land, they're scouring the land, making sure it's safe that they can live and settle on, and try not to interact with others. And then when they interact with others, well, bad things happen. And by the time you wind up getting to the end of this, into this comic book, we see our main character actually interact with werewolves. So how did the werewolves get there? Where do they come from? I don't know. We'll have to read it and find out. But this book was definitely worthy. So I thought this was great. It gives you a little bit of some Viking history and them traveling to the land and trying to settle and then discovering bad things along the way. And it does keep you intrigued. It's got gorgeous artwork. And so I want to continue I want to see how this one continues. And I'm going to give this one a solid B. Looking forward to more. Ultimate Hawkeye! This is issue 1, published by Marvel Comics. 32 pages for the price of $6. A little expensive for what that is. You got a few different writers on this one, but the main guy is Denise Camp, obviously. And you got a couple artists on this one, Juan Frigeri and Michael Stamara. Here's what you can expect in the interior artwork of this comic book. It does get a little wacky at times because this Hawkeye is going through some trials and tribulations. It reminded me of like Arcade in a battle world, where he has to try to find his way out of here in this arena that he is actually in, right? And then he comes across Midas and he goes into this arena and things like that. And you know what? I thought this book was actually worthy. I know I haven't talked very much about it, but there's something in this book that happens that like I don't want to spoil. And the way this played out was much better than I expected. It was fun. The end battle was really a lot of fun elements in here. And just remember how this Hawkeye became Hawkeye, right? The bow and arrow was just left behind and this random person decides to pick it up. And a random person that you get introduced in this comic was supposed to be that Hawkeye and never was and became something else. So that's your little hint here. But this was a solid book. Now, do I feel that it was too expensive for the page count? Yes. And do I feel that one issue learning about Ultimate Hawkeye is not enough? Yes. So it kind of gets knocked down for me on that one. And I don't know if everyone's going to spend $6 for a single issue when it comes to Hawkeye. So I would give this one I'm going to give it a B. I think it was a well-told story, but I think I would have loved to seen this be at least 2 issues, maybe even 3. Get a little bit decompressed story. Let's learn about that character a little bit more. I don't know. So then you can tell your story in Ultimates more when it comes to the main cast. Just my thought and opinion there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Battle World. This is issue 1. Out of all the issues this week, this was the book that I had no expectations for. I'm like, where does this come from, right? Obviously, you were introduced to Secret Wars back in the day. Then we had another Secret Wars in 2015. And then it just springs out, Battle World, issue 1. You're like, what? Like, it just happens. And kind of like in this comic book, it just happens, right? 32 pages for the price of $5. This book is written by Christos Gage and the art is done by Marcus Tau. When it comes to this comic, I thought the artwork was really good. And you do get to see a different cast of characters from different timelines. So that's what's different about this Battle World or Secret Wars compared to the old ones where we got all of the characters in the current Marvel Universe. You get everybody here from different timelines. You get an older Hank Pym, right? You wind up getting a past Carol Danvers, like back in the black suit. You get a Spider-Man in here that is like 15 years old. You get Bucky in here that is really young back when he was the sidekick to Captain America. So there was really some cool elements to this story. And so you get introduced on how this battle world is created in here, and you're kind of like, okay. But then by the time you wind up getting to the end of it, right, you get another villain in here, and you're like, shit, this kind of makes sense now, right? And so I was pleasantly surprised by this one. So I thought this comic book was worthy. Yeah, absolutely. I like seeing the survival for the fittest in this book, because whoever's timeline survives, obviously they're going to live and their timeline continues. And you think that the whole person behind this is Michael Korvac, right? Because he's the one that assembles the world. But again, there's somebody else that's behind this. If you haven't read it and you haven't figured it out yet, I say go ahead and read it. I'm very intrigued on what's going to happen going forward with this book. But this character always makes me read comic books, and I'm going to continue to read this one. So I gave this one like a B+, dude. I had a good time with it. It started off a little slow. It took a while to get to where it needed to go. But at the end, I was like, hell yes. Skinbreaker, issue 1, the newest book from Image, Skybound. This is 32 pages for the price of $5, written by Robert Kirkman, and the art is done by David Finch. This is one of the highly anticipated indie books this week. A lot of you people were like, Mike, don't sleep on this book. Are you picking up Skinbreaker? Yes, I am picking it up, and here is my honest review when it comes to this book. Now, remember, Robert Kirkman has written many hits. Obviously, he's written The Walking Dead. He's done Invincible. He's currently doing Void Rivals. He's done Firepower. He's done a lot of stuff. And if you know his writing, he is a very slow burn writer, right? You will get a story, not much happens in it, but then it builds to a point where there is payoff. So when it comes to his series, you got to be patient. David Finch is a fantastic artist. He does a lot of cover art these days, so it's a visual masterpiece when he actually does interior art for a book, and it does not disappoint. I thought it was very well done. I love the world here. I love the way the characters look. They're rich in detail. So well done. The only thing I might knock this book a little bit for is there's a lot of like yellows in it, and so our characters will tend to blend in that background with the foliage, and it's hard to see them, right? But that could be done on purpose, right? Again, these guys are hunters, they're warriors. It takes place in the jungle. That's been the theme of the day, right? And so I get kind of like what they were going for here. Now, in this comic book, we wind up getting to see two main characters. We see the chief of the tribe. We kind of see the warrior that kind of protects this elder, right? And it's getting to the time to where this elder might be ending his rule. And the way this happens is that you have to have a warrior that challenges him, right? It's kind of like, reminds me of like Black Panther. And so we wind up getting to see the tribe getting a little uneasy of the chief and whatnot. And what happens is that there is this ritual, this culture that takes place with the young, where they actually sit in this ritual where the sun rises, and these children have this very pale like skin, and their power does not come out until the chief raises this blade and he reveals the strength of the actual children here. And when one of the warriors finds out that his child was not worthy, right, he deems a possible challenge on the chief. So, and at the end of this book, something happens where it's unexpected. So at the end of the day, this book was worthy. I get it. There may not have been a lot of story in this book, but what this book showcases, I think, in this first issue is the visual masterpiece that David Finch presents, right? And I think you're going to get a little bit more story as the second issue comes out, and I'm looking forward to it. Again, I've read a lot of Robert Kirkman stuff. I know what to expect. There's some times where you're just like, man, that's all that happens, and I gotta wait another issue. But I'm telling you, his payoffs deliver. So at the end of the day, it's not a perfect issue, right? Some would say, I don't know if I'm into this culture. I don't know if I'm into this tribe, right? So we'll see what happens. But I gave this one a B+ as well. I'm looking forward to investing in this series. There you have it, guys. There are this week's newest issue ones that I read for the week. I need to know in the comments below, do you agree or disagree on my thoughts on these books this week? And as always, guys, I will leave you more content right here for you to click on. If you want to check out my haul from yesterday, it was a mighty one. And go for it. So as always, guys, remember, support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always remember, read your comics so we can have great comic conversation. Guys, have a wonderful Thursday, and I'll see you on the next one.